depending on the sector you want to talk about, commercial, there's a lot more obstacles. Everything from legal to regulation to state, local, county laws, different oversight that prevents a lot of capability from being used today. A lot of regulation was written in the 60s and 70s, and there was no drone threat back in those times.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 236. Can we really stop drones? For that question, we turn to Ken Geyer, CEO and co-founder of Liteye Systems. Liteye Systems is a world leader and technology solutions provider and integrator for the military and commercial markets. After a successful career as a stockbroker in the late 80s, Ken realized his true interests resided in developing new companies. He successfully launched 8 companies primarily focused on cutting-edge technologies and bringing useful and effective products to market. For the last 19 years with Liteye, Ken and his business partner, Chief Technology Officer Tom Scott, built a strong and profitable core business with military and commercial customers. They have strategically aligned with key partners, and they continually bring new and cutting-edge solutions to market. Liteye has over $60 million in Counter Unmanned Defense systems deployed with the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Army in 6 different countries. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Ken talks about Liteye Systems, the effectiveness of counter-drone solutions, and the need to focus attention on the regulatory environment to protect airports and other critical assets. The biggest question I pose to Ken is whether we already have the capability to stop drones. Stay tuned because Ken gives us a clear answer. But before we hear from Ken, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Now you have the option of making a one-time donation in any amount by going to droneradioshow.com/donate. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. And if you'd like to make a monthly contribution, you can still go to patreon.com/droneradioshow. Make sure you check out this year's Commercial UAV Expo in Las Vegas on October 28th to the 30th. Join thought leaders from across the Americas to learn the best practices in unmanned systems. Go to expouav.com for more details. So let's learn about the state of today's counter-drone solutions with Ken Geyer of Liteye Systems. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Ken to introduce himself.
I'm Kenneth Geyer, CEO and co-founder of Liteye Systems.
Ken, what does Liteye Systems do?
Liteye is a 20-year-old defense contractor. So we actually do a lot of different things. We build head-mounted displays, augmented weapon sights, uncooled thermal cameras, positioners, and then we also do big systems such as the Explorer Kit, which is a man-portable radar and camera combination, and then Counter UAS, Counter Unmanned Systems, which has been the biggest and hottest thing for the last 4 years.
How did you get involved in the drone industry?
Actually, we were building uncooled custom thermal cameras for different drone projects out there. There's companies that are doing agriculture and inspections, and they wanted better thermal cameras than what was out there available commercially. So we designed a couple different products for everything from DJI all the way to custom UAVs, and they just needed bigger camera payloads, different lenses, different software capabilities. So we started doing that in a smaller way. And then in Korea, back in 2014, the same radar we're using today, the glider radar, the A400, that radar was actually doing ground surveillance on the DMZ. There was 40 of those radars. They're still there today. They were detecting people and vehicles and movement on the DMZ. And those operators started seeing targets that weren't on the ground and pulled up the camera, and lo and behold, they were detecting the UAVs coming across the border. And that was about the same time that the UAV ran into the Blue House in Korea. And that started everybody in the community, in the defense community, and embassies and everything else asking, well, what do we do? how do we detect these? How do we get these out of the air when we do detect them? What do we do? So, the British partners we have and a lot of partners here in the U.S., we all started working together. In 2015, there was an all call out to industry from the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Army. The Desert Chance 1 was the very first exercise. I think 12 or 13 companies responded. We came out. Liteye was one of the few with a whole system. A lot of people had a lot of different components to this threat. We operated for 3 weeks out at Yuma Proving Grounds in the middle of the desert. And that was the very first counter-drone real exercise done by the U.S.
When you say a complete system, what does that mean to you?
Liteye is the backbone, so we hang different capabilities off the system to be able to take on the drone threat. The biggest thing for us is the basic system has a Blighter A400 radar. So that radar detects, tracks targets that are coming in, both ground and air. Then we have thermal daylight cameras and positioner, which cue to the target as it comes in. So as an operator detects something on the radar, the camera slews over it. Now we have video tracking as well as radar tracking. And then you have the ability to decide what you're going to do with it. That was the very first system that came out. And at that point, we had an electronic warfare or jammer suite that we had in 2015. All of those have evolved over time, of course, and we've added more capability in. So today you've got a radar still that can detect, and that can be different types of radar depending on where we're working, who we're working with. The system can operate by itself as a radar or an RF sniffer. We can use different brands of RF sniffer out there, RF detection device. Those are detect, track. Then we have the thermal camera now as an HD thermal camera, an HD daylight camera. So we on target, you can identify it, interrogate it, grab evidence from it. And then defeat capability, which really depends on the location, regulations, different laws, what can be used where. Military, of course, gets away with using whatever they want to use. So we can use the EW, electronic warfare, jamming capabilities. We can use net gun. We can task a 30-millimeter cannon, put it on target. We can pull a laser on target. We can put the phaser microwave from Raytheon on target. So really, to us, it's whatever the operator has a capability of being. As we are standalone, we can also be part of a bigger network. So if our system shows up somewhere and there's bigger military networks with bigger radars, we fill the gap of close-in air defense, and then we can hand off targets that are outgoing to the bigger systems, or if something's coming in from a greater distance, they can hand it off to us to take care of locally.
In terms of the counter-drone services, does Liteye primarily serve the military market?
That's who's been able to spend the money and actually deploy it, and that's who had the first problems of significance. So in 2016, there was an event called Desert Chance 3, which for us was a qualified event. That's where our first contracts came out of. That was 30 days, again, back out in Yuma Proving Grounds. We ran day and night. They ran every scenario, 360 degrees. It was basically protect the FOB, protect the forward operating base. We did that in June of 2016. As soon as that was completed, we went to the contracting. The hardest part of it was the Air Force, who was doing the procurement for the Army at the time, was getting to us. And then those systems deployed to Iraq in October of 2016. Our systems were taken to the Battle of Mosul, the Battle of Raqqa, into Syria, and they're still operational in theater today. That was the very first customer, very first contract for counter UAS that we're aware of in the U.S. And that was military, because they could do what they needed to do to protect the warfighter and to protect our allies and critical infrastructure that was in those countries. That led to contracts for product that went into Afghanistan. That was our MATV, MATV. We put a mobile odd system, or MODs, on that vehicle. Those are still operational. That led to the Air Force starting to protect bases, and as of December, we'll have 18 systems that have been delivered to the Air Force that are deployed different air bases around the globe. Depending on the sector you want to talk about, commercial, there's a lot more obstacles, everything from legal to regulation to state, local, county laws, different oversight that prevent a lot of capability from being used today. A lot of regulation was written, 60s and 70s, and there was no drone threat back in those times. So, there's something like 32 different regulations that need to be cleared. And it depends on what you're trying to protect. So if we're protecting an airport, you can use our radars and our cameras. You could do the detect, track, and identify and be gathering evidence, but you still cannot defeat. There is no legal. I was just reading a brief from a law firm talking about there's no real non-legal regulation type of capability for defeat or defend. If you've got a net gun, there's a side to that because the net grabs the drone, brings it down to the ground. Still have something coming out of the air. You've got listening or jamming capabilities, but right now you cannot legally jam anything. You cannot use electronic warfare at an airport. No matter all the different discussions going on about the different flavors that are out there, it's still not legal for you to use it. FCC, FAA, and other regulatory bodies still have things that we've got to get through. When you talk about the people that are doing hacking, it is not legal to hack a device. So there's legal issues with hacking things. There's legal issues with RF sniffing and listening to the drone. Law firms and Justice Department are all working through what are the ramifications for you to be set up somewhere listening to the communications of a drone that you did not have a warrant to listen to. So there's a lot of things that it becomes very complicated as you move into the commercial area. Same thing with oil refiners, which have been a very big source for us the last 3 weeks since Saudi Aramco happened. We're being contacted by oil refineries, oil storage, pipelines, oil transportation, offshore oil rigs. They're all trying to do something now globally. It's a big issue, and they know that there's a vulnerability there. But you look at that, and the same thing, depending on where these facilities are and how important they are, strategically important they are to the government that controls them, whether it be U.S. or another nation, that's going to dictate what they can use. Again, they can use the basics of our system to detect, track, identify, gather evidence, interrogate, alert security personnel to the presence. But whether they can use defeat capabilities is going to be another question. Saudi is going through that right now. Saudi Aramco, detect, track, they know a threat's coming in. What are they going to be allowed to use? Rockets, 30 millimeter, 50 caliber, EW, net gun, laser, phaser, microwave weapons. There's a plethora of what can be used right now. The biggest fallacy out there is people think there's nothing that can be done in some cases, but there is. We just have to get man-made regulations and laws out of the way.
Do you see any movement in the United States that would lead you to believe that there's a pathway to using these options?
On the military side, yes. So now we can use tough CONUS, continental U.S. You can use things at certain bases, certain strategic assets. There are things that are of critical need for the U.S. Those can be protected now. There is some leeway that's been granted to the Department of Energy, DHS, some of those other areas. There still is a lot of things that have to happen to be able to use it at an airport. There are other countries. Gatwick is already using systems. They're already protecting the Gatwick airport. To my knowledge, it's the only airport in the world that's actively doing something, but nobody else. They're still wanting to do testing, deconflicts. Unfortunately, it's a process that has to go through that's painfully slow until something bad happens, and then we'll see things clear.
How do you characterize the tactics that are being used by our adversaries, and how have they evolved?
A lot of people in this industry will compare it to it. The improvised explosive device ongoing chess game, that especially heated up when we first got to Iraq and Afghanistan, the allies got there. We've seen it evolve already. It started off from a very crude form of ISR or dropping some kind of payload, explosives, biological, chemical, whatever they could drop off a drone back in 2016 into 2017. And then we saw it start to become very much more sophisticated. They didn't have to invest a lot of money in it. You could buy everything you need on the internet. It's easy to get your hands on. They could customize things. They could take a 12-year-old and turn them into an active combatant who had a very effective weapon just by putting a drone in his hands. That has evolved more and more rapidly, I think, over the last year than anybody expected. You look at the attack on Saudi Aramco, that didn't happen on the spur of a moment. They actually had to have had conducted ISR. They had been looking at it, planning it out. They attacked with cruise missiles and drones in an organized way. They knew where to strike in that area. So if you look at the sophistication that between 2016 and where we are now, that's a huge leap. And it's going to continue. I mean, as we take away that capability, As our systems showed up in Iraq and Afghanistan in combat and started to take that capability away from the enemy, they were trying to find ways to get it back. It's inexpensive, it's very effective, and they want it. It's close in air defense. As you saw, again, I hate to keep going back to Saudi Aramco, but they did attacks on the pipeline, they did attacks on the refinery, they've done more things there. They've evolved. They've said, look, big air defense networks have holes, and they found a way to exploit it with commercial or retail drones.
Getting back to your company, I recently read an article about a partnership between Liteye and Red 6 Solutions. Could you talk about that specific partnership? What does it bring to Liteye?
That was a very big partnership for us. We participated in, I think it's over 40 now, exercises and test evaluation events with the military. At a lot of those events, Red 6 pilots were the red team. Those were unscripted events where the pilots attacked as if we were in combat. They were free to do whatever they needed to do to test our system, which we embraced because I can't improve a system if I don't know what's wrong with it or where the holes are. So Red 6 was always in the same areas with us, working in the same areas. It only made sense to start teaming with them and start looking at the threat from their side. They scour the planet on what's going on out there in the drone industry, what's going on in combat, what's going on in cybercrime with drones, everything and anything to do with a drone. Red 6 was educating themselves on and continues to educate themselves on. So they became a very good partner to us and to be able to test our system. So to us, that was something we weren't getting just by having our own pilots fly. We had to have somebody that was autonomous, who was not working with our engineers on a daily basis, who was thinking of ways to defeat our systems, thinking of ways to challenge us, thinking of ways to make us expand what we were looking at, how we were dealing with it. And then that leads into the other partnerships. And we've got partnerships all up and down, all kinds of different capabilities. Numerica is one of our partners. They are actually another Colorado company like ourselves. So they do algorithms and they tie into all the networks for us. They do the cybersecurity for us. They have been a very strong partner for putting guns on target. Chess Dynamics, who makes the rugged positioners we use and the video tracking, which is above and beyond any other video tracking we've seen on the market. Enterprise Control Systems, ECS, which does our electronic warfare suites. They are old hats at the Improvised Explosive Device chess game. They were doing jammers for the U.S. and British and other allies in Iraq and Afghanistan, helping protect lives and vehicles and other equipment from improvised explosive devices. They took that knowledge and brought that to the partnership of what we're working on now. Pratt & Miller, who does our vehicle installations and helps us build the SEODs, which is the 20-foot shipping container that the Air Force is deploying everywhere. It really does take a team to combat this threat. That's why we don't look at it as one technology is going to be a silver bullet that works everywhere and that can be utilized against any threat. That's just simply not true. We've got to keep evolving. We've got to keep adding capability in. Liteye can't develop on itself. It's going to partner with. Perfect example of a recent partnership is OpenWorks. They have the Skywall 100, the new Skywall 300. Those are net guns. We needed another defeat capability that wasn't a gun or wasn't electronic warfare. We saw them demonstrate that. We saw that tested. And we decided to team up with them and be their partner for North America and to bring that into our solutions that we're offering U.S. customers. And that goes on day after day.
Liteye seems to fully embrace strategic partnerships. Has it always been that way, or did that evolve over time?
I think it started early days. We started in the year 2000. Liteye came out of another company we owned. We rolled the technology out, and it started as its own company in 2000. And in those days, Liteye was kind of like the Intel inside. Nobody knew the name Liteye. We were producing head-mounted displays, rugged displays, augmented displays, and thermal cameras, and it was always going into bigger systems. So back then, we were the partner to a Raytheon or a Boeing or a Lockheed Martin. If you've ever heard of the LRAS system, which is a long-range thermal camera, there's a Liteye display on every one of those. There's tens of thousands of those worldwide with the U.S. military and its allies. Nobody knew that was us as part of that solution for long-range thermal cameras. So we've very much been on both sides of the picture here, whether we're a strategic partner to somebody else or we're bringing in strategic partners to bolster the systems that we're offering and the capabilities that we want to bring to bear. So it's been very much part of our culture from the beginning.
Why do you feel Liteye has been so successful over its near 20-year history?
We look at it as a triangle. So we tie in the end user, the warfighter, the security guard, the security personnel, the expertise, no matter what we're protecting or where our systems are going, whether it's a royal palace, a refinery, a military base, we talk to the guys on the ground. We put things in their hands and find out what works for them. And then we talk to the requirements guys and help try to, massage is a terrible word, but try to focus that requirement to be towards what the end user is looking for, what he needs to do the job. And then we talk to procurement. So we're shaping that requirement. We're shaping where the procurement's coming from. In many cases, it's over the course of many years. It doesn't even happen quickly, which is really hard when you're in the electronics industry. For instance, we've got a project that just came in for HMDs a couple of weeks ago, and that has been almost 22 months in the effort to get that done, to get that success coming now. So I think that's a lot of our success is listening to all different parties here and making sure when we bring something to market, if you look at Liteye and our website and then the things that are on our website, everything that we produce, there's a customer somewhere that needed that. It wasn't because we thought we had the next perfect mousetrap and we will build it and they will come. We've always been driven by what the end user needs to accomplish his mission, whether it's civilian or military. So that has been our biggest success. And then when we got to Iraq, our systems worked. Our guys got there, and the Iraqi army quickly called it the day the drone stopped because their soldiers were being attacked, zeroed in by mortar because the drone was calling in their positions. And that was the biggest success for us is we got there and we stopped all that. There's some great information in the Army archives now that are now public that talk about some of those battles and how the Iraqi army wouldn't move forward unless they saw our system because they wanted that umbrella of protection. They wanted to know that somebody wasn't spying on them. You know, we took all those lessons we had and we keep evolving that with somebody calls us up from an oil refinery or a nuclear power plant. They say, we don't know what kind of budget to create. We don't know what to do about this new air instructor. We have fences, we have cameras, we have personnel, but suddenly we have to worry about the air as well. We engage with them from their level. We go do a site survey. We talk to them. We look at how they're doing their security, how something we bring in will be able to be integrated into that security picture. You know, they're going to always worry about manpower. They're always going to worry about how they defend against something new. Well, we try to take part of that burden on. We try to bring the lessons we learned from combat into how we will protect that site for that facility. That's a lot of how we're successful. We don't just go off on a tangent, build something, and hope the customer will come.
Is it also correct that everyone in your company is asked to read a book called Skunkworks?
Yeah, Skunkworks. Internally, all of our employees get a copy of Skunkworks when they come on to work for us. That's been a very big part of what we do.
Why Skunkworks? What message are you hoping that your employees pick up?
Deliver a product that works, delivered on time, under budget, over-deliver, under-promise. You know, if something doesn't work, immediately tell the end user. Don't try to beat around the bush. Don't stall. Bring it forefront. Immediately solve that problem. You know, we try to address things instantly, not over the course of 6 months of trying to figure out why. Return the money. The military came to us and said, build something, and we take money for it, and we're going down that path, and it doesn't work. We were inspired by that. You know, return the money. Stop the project. Admit that it's a failure. Move on. Go another direction. Take chances. And I think that's what we took away from that book. Tom Scott, my other co-founder, and myself, we read that a long time ago, and it spoke to us. You know, that's the kind of company we wanted to have. We wanted to manufacture stuff that was used and would be continued to be used, not something that was considered halfway there or thrown away because it didn't work, or a money pit because it was a endless pouring money after an idea that never got there. We wanted to be successful, you know, whether it was one head-mounted display or it was all the way into $1 million systems. And we want to have that installed in every employee, every part of our organization, every level of our organization.
I think that's a pretty interesting way to instill a strong culture and a set of values in an organization.
And I'll tell you what, it works well because just the other day, we were chasing a bug in the system. Somewhere, something had changed. One of our positioners, we had an issue, and one of our employees came up with an idea. What if I go try this? And we said, hey, go try it. And sure enough, that was where we found the bug. And it was fixed and corrected in a week. And now that's being pushed out to make sure that change gets put through all the systems we have that are already fielded.
Given the current regulatory constraints, how does Liteye move forward to address the issues?
Well, of course, we're not going to give up on the airports. We think it's too important. My family flies, your family flies. And if a plane is brought down because of a drone, not because the technology exists to protect it, but because regulation prevented it from being used, that's a crime. That's a shame. And so we will keep working with our congressmen, our senators, DHS, FAA, TSA, FCC, whoever we can to help try to shape that and move that forward so that whether it's our system or another manufacturer's system, something gets deployed to protect air flight. And that needs to be done. So that's near and dear to us. There's no money to be made right now. This is all us expending the capital and resources to help go fight this battle. Because if we don't do it, and the industry doesn't do it, who's going to do it? So I think that's one of them to us that's important to us. We'll make the investment in people and man hours and relationships and meetings and flights and hotels and everything else to go have those discussions. In other areas, it's not as hard. You don't have the layers that are there. So are we going to protect nuclear sites? Yes. Are we going to protect oil refinery and oil production? Yes. And we'll keep expanding those and work in those areas, ports and, borders and everywhere else you can think of. But to me, we have to go spend the money and time to fight for the airports. I got accused the other day by a congressman of, you just want to sell product. That's not it. We all want to go do our part to protect, lives, and infrastructure, and aircraft, and everything else.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
The biggest message I would send out is to companies out there, whether it's IP, people trying to steal IP, they're trying to copy, break into your servers, get video of your products, attack your facility. I think everybody needs to talk about this problem. They should talk to it with their security infrastructure, their security personnel, and they should at least have a conversation. They may not have put funds aside to invest in this area yet, but it is a problem. It is coming. There was a great story out today, an article out today. The guy was talking about all the different drones that'll be coming, and with the good comes the bad. You just can't stick your head in the sand. You need to talk about it. Even if you don't have any capabilities, the simple question of asking your staff, what do you do if you have a drone hovering outside your facility? What happens? Who calls? Who calls the police? What do you do? How do you try to get as much intel on that drone as possible? Try to figure out where the pilot is. These are all conversations you can have without even having invested in hardware yet. But, there has to be a plan put in place. It's a new world. It's 4 years. We've seen a lot of things happen. We've seen parades where a drone is blown up and people have been killed. We've seen places facilities where drones are coming in close to the facility trying to hack in, just hardcore hack into a server. I've seen a report where BMW had a problem in Stuttgart where drones were flying over trying to get video of the newest car coming out, not only for putting it out there on the web, but competition, trying to see what they were doing, what they're up to. It's definitely affecting how we look at security.
And for my final question, Ken, in your opinion, do we already have the capabilities to stop drones and make the sky safer today?
My personal opinion, we're already operating in air bases. We're already seeing systems operate at Gatwick. There is a lot of technology out there that could be brought to bear right now. Unfortunately, you're talking about expenditures, money to be spent, infrastructure, training, maintenance, all kinds of things that have to be brought to bear. And then on top of that, the regulations, the laws, federal, state, county, cities. There's just a lot to move. It's going to take a lot of people working, a lot of information, a lot of conversations to get there. And that's where I think we are. But is there something we can do today? Yes.
That's it for episode 236 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Ken Geyer of Liteye Systems. I want to thank Ken for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Liteye or want to connect with Ken, check out the webpage at liteye.com. And Liteye is spelled Liteye. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the costs of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate or patreon.com/droneradioshow. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.